On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Mirror Reaper by Bell Witch.
It's one song.
Yes, and an album.
Uh-huh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're talking about what you could technically consider a single.
A single.
You could call this a single. It is one track comprising the album Mirror Reaper by Bell Witch. It's one track that is 83 minutes long.
Yes, an hour and 23 minutes. Was this ever on vinyl? Did they split it up that way? So they managed to split it up.
Yes. It is somewhat, even as a double album, it is somewhat abridged.
If it is, that's right. It would be a double album, wouldn't it? I mean, granted.
Your drink is freaking me out.
Is it freaking me out?
Move the coaster further forward.
All right. I'm stuck there.
There we go.
I could hear lots of places in this record where you could just sort of say, hey, there's dead space. We could stop it now, and start on the other side.
I suppose you could. This is I think a monumentally interesting album.
Yes,
it's monumental in a lot of ways, and we'll get to talking more about that in a bit. First, how are you doing? I mean, it's only been 4 days since the last time we recorded.
I know it was. We did this actually on Saturday. Now we're doing it on Wednesday. It's been a good week at work.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Well, the first couple of days were kind of a mess for me just because I had production.
Sure.
We're supposed to be writing letters for this contest that we're doing. We're sending in the mail people's prizes because it's not a great idea for them to come into the studio right now, that sort of thing. Well, I have not had time other than today, which finally slowed down for me. I have not had time to sit down
letters.
and write. I don't have to handwrite any of the letters. Well, you have
to hand dress an envelope. Yeah,
I've got to fold, I've got to fold the sheets. I've got to put the prizes in. I've got to write the address and everything. And that doesn't take very long. I just have not had time to do it because I've had more important things to be doing. But I've finally got some time to do that. I also didn't realize that on the outside of letters, the post office likes you to have 3 lines of name, address, city state, zip code. I didn't know that because I've written 2 letters in my entire life.
Well, sure. I mean, because why would you?
Yeah, I'm 24 years old.
You live in modern times.
I've got no cause to write letters except for my experience with letters has always been through work, more or less. When I was 14, I worked at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center in Washburn, North Dakota, and that was the summer. So it's a similar summer to right now, where everything's kind of on fire.
Right.
And the Missouri River decided, hey, wouldn't it be great if I was bigger?
Sure.
And so half of the foundation's buildings were closed, and therefore half of their potential revenue stream was gone.
Therefore, they didn't need the kid behind the counter.
Yeah, that came in October.
Oh,
but the letters that I ended up folding and putting in and having to I think I probably tasted letter glue for about a month afterwards.
Sure.
They were all to foundation members and the taste of letter glue.
Yeah.
You enjoy it?
I've had a few letter writing campaigns in my day.
I suppose.
In my day.
Back in my I'm picturing you as Gary, Larry, Jerry, Terry from Parks and Rec.
From Parks and Rec.
When Ben is watching him, fold campaign letters and watching him lick all of them.
Right, and it turns out they're all wrong. So he has to redo all of it.
But it was amazing because he did thousands of them in a couple of hours. Right. And he's just like, oh, well, looks like I did these wrong. Get to do it again. Because he's just constantly cheerful.
Right. He likes office work a lot.
And I think that was also the scene where Ben sort of starts to get an understanding of why Jerry's wife is so hot, watching him lick all the letters.
Yeah.
It's
He can lick for hours.
Or, of course, the doctor. That man has the largest penis I've ever seen.
We restarted that, by the way, for the sixth time.
Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec.
God.
Yeah, well, the other night, I didn't restart it. I'm like, oh, it's midnight. I'm going to bed. And my wife is like, I can't sleep yet. I said, oh, well, join you later. And then I heard, from the bedroom.
I've only watched Parks and Rec twice.
Really?
I mean, it's good. I love it.
It's a great show.
At some point, I'll probably rewatch it, but I've got other things, I guess, that I'm doing and wanting to watch. I started watching Samurai Champloo over the weekend, or Champloo. It's the follow-up to Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, sure.
Made by the same team. And that's pretty good. I'm only a couple episodes in. I'm trying not to binge it the way that I binged Cowboy Bebop, because like Cowboy Bebop, it's also a limited series. It's not, super long. So
yeah, there were 25 episodes of Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah, and Samurai Champloo is pretty much the same length.
Okay.
So I'm trying not to binge it so I can make it last a little bit longer. It seems it's good. You got Steve Bloom on the American voice cast again.
Nice.
Couple other recognizable voice acting names, but I can't recall them at the moment. I'm really wanting to, speaking of like anime stuff, although it's controversial whether or not it's considered anime, I really need to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. I've watched half of it so far, and I've enjoyed it.
I really, really need to watch, because
it's fun.
Especially, I've seen so many quotes from Uncle Iroh.
Yeah.
That's just like, wow, he seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
So I need to watch that series, and actually, because it's so weird. I never watched it while I was on. I was a kid when it was on the television. Never watched an episode.
Is it that old? Is it 2006 or something like that? Or
something like that. Yeah, I would have been 9 years old.
10, yeah.
I went through a weird phase though when I was. I don't know if it's weird considering me. It's not weird for me, I guess.
Yeah.
But I went through a phase from the time I was like 8 to the time I was like 15, where I did not care about cartoons.
Really?
Like I purposefulully did not want to watch cartoons.
I'm a big boy now.
Yeah, I was wanting to watch History Channel stuff and National Geographic and
pornography,
Mythbusters. Eventually, but like Mythbusters and stuff like that. So which I guess depending upon who you are is a pornography all of its own.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that probably fell in that period where I was not watching cartoons, and then I think when I was like 13. I was probably younger than that. There was a certain point where what kind of got me back into like, oh, this is fun. It was Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Oh, love that show.
Which was like, wow, this is kind of weird and odd. And now it's like, I kind of wish I hadn't missed so many of these great shows that my friends grew up with. People talk about Chowder, and I'm like, I don't know the first goddamn thing about Chowder. And there's a million episodes, so I don't feel like going back and watching all of them. But something like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a lot more digestible.
Yes.
There's only 3 seasons. So I think I could get through that quite a bit easier.
Yeah, I never went through that period. I think it's because when I was very small, my mom and I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and 50% of my grandfather's TV watching was cartoons.
Really?
I mean, it seems like, in my mind, early on it was ingrained that's not a kid's thing. That's just a human thing.
That's
you want to watch goddamn cartoons.
Everyone likes cartoons. Yeah. They're ridiculous and funny.
Right.
Well, and especially the cartoons when I was a kid, there are definitely examples of today, but like, the late 90s into the early 2000s, those were cartoons positively laden with things only adults would understand and enjoy.
Right.
They were purposefully made for like, oh, you can watch this with your kids and it's funny.
Like the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, but it's funny, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
I still think it's weird that Gennady, was it Tarkovsky?
Yeah,
Tartakovsky was one of the guys who worked on Powerpuff Girls, and then later does like Samurai Jack and like the Clone Wars series and stuff, and they're thematically so different. Although I guess Powerpuff Girls isn't that different to like Samurai Jack.
No, a very similar art style.
And also the fact that the Powerpuff Girls genuinely beat the living shit out of stuff. Like
they did. And some of the villains on that show are genuinely frightening.
Like, yeah, it wasn't the girls themselves were like cutesy and adorable.
Sure.
But then they would go and fight stuff, and the stuff they were fighting was terrifying, and they would beat the living fuck out of it.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, we defeated with the power of friendship. It's like, no, they beat the shit out of it.
Yeah.
There's that episode where they like break open poor Mojo Jojo's brain case and beat the fuck out of him.
Terrible.
Actually, there's several of those episodes, I'm pretty sure.
Mojo Jojo. Yeah.
And like the backstory of Mojo Jojo is so fucking tragic.
Nightmare, yeah.
It's the nightmarish.
Yeah.
So this
or him.
I don't remember him.
Him. Don't you remember him?
I don't remember him.
He was red and had claws.
Oh, it's that I can see the outline of. I can see the silhouette of the character. I don't remember the context. He was like, or maybe I'm getting him confused. Did Satan appear at some point on Powerpuff Girls? Some guy that looked like the devil.
Him kind of looked like the devil.
Okay, his Infernal Majesty.
Maybe.
Is that what it stood for?
It
possibly?
might be. I mean, there's the band, His Infernal Majesty. But
I wonder if that's been a saying before the band, because the band is fairly new, isn't it?
Fairly. I think early 2000s.
Okay. I've got some ice in my mouth right now because we're drinking an OJ special, I guess. Earlier today, I mentioned something about Hawaiian Punch and then immediately went, oh, God, I need Hawaiian Punch right now.
Yeah.
I will kill somebody to get my hands on some Hawaiian Punch. Thankfully, I didn't need to do that because briefly after I said that, we discussed, what if you, like, what's a mixed drink you could make with Hawaiian Punch? Of course, vodka. But like we were talking about potential cocktails. We didn't end up making a cocktail, but we are drinking vodka with Smirnoff with Hawaiian Punch.
Well, Hawaiian Punch with Smirnoff. There's more Hawaiian Punch.
That is true. It's not. I mean, it's Hawaiian Punch. Yeah. It's 1,000,000% sugar. And like, at least to me, the vodka taste is not particularly strong. So it's It's fine. It's good.
And they had like 6 million varieties of Hawaiian Punch now. I did not know.
Really?
Yeah, I did not know there were, so many varieties. I'm like, just give me fucking Hawaiian Punch. That's all I want.
Yeah.
And I said, which one is the original one? I don't even remember what it's called. And it's the red juicy. I was like, there's the red juice, and there's one of them left. All the rest of them are full. Like there's a tropical, there's a orange mango.
I mean, it's the 4th coming up. I guess people are loading up on their sweet drinks.
I suppose.
The only one, like, I know there was a blue flavor, and that's kind of the extent. It was like
a blue raspberry kind of.
There was red and there was blue. Those were the flavors of Hawaiian Punch. But now I guess there's probably like a purple. There's probably a orange. Is there a green?
There might be a green. Yeah, it might be. It's kale.
Oh, it's kale flavored. See, my conception of the flavor of a Hawaiian Punch, this is not whatever flavor this is. This is red flavored. This is and blue Hawaiian Punch, that's blue flavored.
Right.
It's not whatever fruit it supposedly is in there. No, that's blue flavored.
No, it's blue. This is red. It's juicy red is what it says.
Truth in advertising.
Exactly. Like anytime somebody says it's grape flavored, that's bullshit. It's purple flavored.
Yes, it's
grape flavored candy or drinks do not taste remotely like grapes.
Yeah. Whoever the scientist was that like came up with the chemical that they use in candy to be like, this is grape flavored, and like ate that and went, this shall be grape flavored. Had some really weird fucking taste buds.
Either that or it's the greatest prank ever pulled. He said, this is grape flavored. And everybody said, really? Yeah, like purple grapes. Purple grapes? Aren't grapes green? Shut up and eat the candy.
I mean, some grapes are purple.
I guess some. Yeah, but this doesn't not taste like purple. Grape knee-high is not purple grape flavored.
I suppose. Or a grape...
like Welch's or...
Yeah, I was going to say grape... Jolly Ranchers.
Grape Jolly Ranchers.
Grape Jolly Ranchers are my favorite, though.
Oh, they're great.
It's my favorite flavor.
Love grape Jolly Ranchers.
They're not grape.
They're not grape.
Purple.
They're purple flavored.
They're purple flavored. We're veering into Dave Chappelle territory.
Potentially.
I want that purple stuff. Oh, boy. Yeah, but that's what we're drinking right now. You got any plans for the 4th of July?
Plans? No. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we're going to, because our house is right by the fairgrounds, so it's debatable whether or not we're going to drive over the fairgrounds and watch the fireworks, or if we're going to just put lawn chairs in our front yard.
It might be a better idea.
My youngest child, his favorite thing is a lot of the ground effects, like when they blow up the oil. You know, they do that every year. They have old oil in barrels, and they just fucking blow it up. And they think, here's some fireworks. It's old oil in a can that we explode, and it singes your eyebrows from 20 yards away. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, that's what they blamed on the death of a camel last year.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that at the zoo, which is nearby to the fairgrounds.
We had a brand new baby camel.
And it got scared to death by the sound of an oil drum explosion.
Literally.
God.
It's scared. And it ran toward the fence and it tripped on a thing and broke its little neck.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the time. I haven't heard of any other explosions that happened quite the way that this one did. I think it was in like 2014 when that rail car exploded outside of Castleton and it looked like a fucking nuke went off.
Right.
Holy shit. Because North Dakota crude is remarkably volatile.
It is.
It is a very, very volatile crude oil.
It's so much so that there's what processing is in Washington State that was taking some of our crude oil.
Yeah.
That said they could no longer take it because of the gas content was too high. It was too dangerous.
Yeah, they were worried about it. They were saying it was too dangerous to go on Washington rails, that their state regulations would not allow it.
If this shit falls over, people gonna die.
Yeah. And of course, it exploded outside of Castleton, which 5 people live in Castleton.
Right, and they were all safe.
Yeah.
Because outside of Castleton is usually about 10 miles from Castleton.
Yeah. Basically. I mean, it's very close to Fargo, which is much more densely populated. Like, Castleton is like, like, oh, hey, it's only 20 more minutes till we get to Fargo.
Sure.
But it's just like a bunch of buildings, a grain elevator, and then nothing.
Right.
Nothing at all. Like, people talk about when they talk about how flat and boring North Dakota is, they're talking about the Red River Valley. Like, I guess, yes, compared to other places in the country, the rest of North Dakota, fairly flat, but it's more noticeable here because there are far fewer trees.
Right.
I don't think it is in any way. I don't think Western North Dakota is any flatter than the majority of Minnesota or Wisconsin.
You just don't notice in Minnesota because there's trees blocking the flatness.
Because there is trees, and like most of central to Western North Dakota is really rolling hills. Eastern North Dakota, on the other hand, is as flat as a sheet of paper.
Sure.
It is as I understand, some of the most perfectly flat land on the planet.
Right. Outside of the Mojave Desert.
And it's depending upon the time of year, soul destroying to look at. I guess depending upon your point of view as well.
Well, see, I mean, it's soul destroying, but I mean, the good news is, hey, you're going to get to a city where there's some nice restaurants and some people.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because that's where our cities are, is on the eastern.
Yeah, that's where the big ones are anyway.
Yeah, Grand Forks and Fargo.
Although I think maybe it's because I'm more familiar with that. That was not at, like, going through Eastern North Dakota, whatever. I know it looks like that. I remember I was 16 and coming back from Indianapolis. And when we were going down to Indianapolis for National Speech, we went through Chicago.
Sure.
And like we went through Chicago. We didn't stop in Chicago. We went straight on through Chicago. On our way back from Indianapolis, we stopped in like somewhere in central Illinois. We stopped at a McDonald's in some town in central Illinois.
One black coffee.
There was nothing within visual range changed in elevation in any way whatsoever besides the beans.
Really?
It was like a field of beans, and everything was perfectly the same height to the horizon. The only thing that rose up at all was road overpasses over the interstate. Everything was perfectly flat.
This was in Illinois.
Yes, this was in central Illinois. I don't remember where, but it it made me want to tear my eyes out because it was like being in a sensory deprivation chamber, except it was the middle. It was the middle of the country. It was, oh God, it was, here, hand that over.
Yeah, I was going to do that.
But it was just, some people find that beautiful. I can't. And I grew up here.
Right. This is what you know.
This is all I've ever known besides going on trips. Like, I adore the mountains, but this is all I've ever known. And that was like alien to me, how flat that was.
Really?
So yeah, that was
we drive from here to your hometown. There's flat there too.
Once you get to Washburn, it's not so bad because then you're finally along the river.
Sure. Well, yeah. I guess going south out of Washburn, there's a neat little hill. Whee!
Yeah, going down that hill, you get an amazing view of this great big bend in the Missouri River, and it's like the view going south from Washburn is beautiful. But most of the drive to Washburn from Minot is horrifyingly boring. I guess you go over Lake Sakakawea, and that's nice. You get to go by a gigantic mine, which that's interesting. At the very least, it's different.
See a giant excavator or whatever the hell that thing is called.
Dragline.
Dragline. That's
called a dragline. That is the size of several houses. And I think its maximum speed is like 3 miles an hour.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen it go over the highway.
Yeah. It's like NASA's crawler.
Sure.
That they use to transport spacecraft from the what is it called? What's the building called where they make the spaceships?
The hangar?
Well, it's a big hangar. They have I used to know the name for it. Partially because it's the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building.
Yeah.
And I remember that entirely because of how much Kerbal Space Program I've played. Because that's also what it's called on there. Anyway, we should probably get to talking about the 9,000-pound doom metal elephant in the room.
And here's the deal. I mean, because last week we were talking about it and how down and depressing it is. The funny thing is giving it another listen. It's not depressing. It's just very introspective. It's
very mournful.
Yeah.
I think it also really depends on the mood you're going into it with. If you're already in kind of a depressive mood and you start listening to this, stop.
Right.
Go put on something different. That's not the time to listen to this unless you really, if you're the type of person who can go into something and say, I'm looking to feel this and I'm really going to let myself experience that emotion. And then when I'm done, I'm going to be done with that and move on with my day and I'll be fine. I'm not that kind of person. If I'm already in a depressive mood and if I'm in a depressive mood and I start listening to Mirror Reaper, it is going to get exponentially worse and worse and worse. But there are times where I can let myself experience the tremendous, at least in a vicarious sort of way, experience the tremendous amount of grief that is on display in this album and sort of connect with that a little bit and then come out of it and be all right. And for me, I guess there is a difference between like, if I'm getting emotional with it and I start crying or something like that, I can come out of that because that's a release. Right. If I'm in
cathartic.
It's cathartic. If I'm in a depressive episode, there's no release from that. That's just going to get worse and continue and ruin my day.
You know what I actually find with this is that it's not as depressive as I was thinking it was before. I listened to it and this would be something I would like to listen to while driving into a sunset.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is an element to this that is a bit more hopeful than maybe you would think. I guess we haven't really talked about what this album is,
right?
Other than at the very start. This is an 83-minute long funeral doom epic.
Yes.
This is probably, it's only a few years old. It came out in 2017, but it is probably going to be remembered for the rest of all time as maybe one of, or if not the greatest funeral doom work there is. at least in my opinion, but I'm saying this as not a huge fan of the genre in general.
Of Funeral Doom.
Because I find it a bit too much.
Right.
At most times. But this is so interesting. So some of the history of this, Bell Witch is a band from Seattle, Washington.
2 members. I thought they were Australian. No, that's right.
You might be getting them confused with
right.
We Lost the Sea.
Right, no.
So Bell Witch is from Seattle. They were founded, let me check here. They were founded in 2010, and they had come up with 2 albums before this. In 2012, there was Longing. 2015, there was Four Phantoms, and Four Phantoms got a fair bit of attention and sort of established them as like, oh, hey, there's this really neat 2-piece.
Yeah, which they are.
And the 2 pieces of the band at that time was Dylan Desmond, who does the clean vocals and bass. The only guitar on stage for these guys is a bass. It's a 6-string bass. And depending upon the part of the song that's being played, it is almost exclusively tapped.
And some exquisite textures.
Oh, God. This is some of the... There is so much... so much variety in the way that Dylan makes that bass sound. There's so much range to the way he plays and the amount of effects that they put on. And it's 83 minutes of some of the slowest music you've ever heard. This is an extremely slow album.
There are aggressive parts.
Yes, that is parts that are aggressive, but the BPM never goes up over 40, I'd say.
Right.
Most of the time, I think it's hovering around 10. This is the beats per minute is slow. If the beats per minute was representative of somebody's heartbeat, you'd say that person is about to die.
That person needs to be intubated.
Right now, that person needs a pacemaker. This is
They're not breathing on their own.
This is a very slow album. So the drummer at the time was Adrian Guerrera for the first 2 albums.
Right, not for this album.
Not for this album. In 2016, I believe, Adrian decided to leave the band for health reasons, and at some point soon after that passed away. He had already been replaced by a friend of theirs, which was, I believe they were friends with each other anyway. I don't think this was the case where it's like, we're holding huge auditions for our drummer, like Dream Theater, for example. I think Jesse knew these guys. He was replaced by Jesse Schreibman, who took over doing backing vocals and drums. He does most of the screamed vocals and the growled vocals. And they had already been working, Jesse and Dylan had already been working on the foundation for Mirror Reaper, which was this idea of as above, so below. They wanted the album to be a mirror, essentially, where the first half of the album, the second half of the album would be mirror images of each other.
Palindromic.
Yeah, and they wanted it to be this 80-minute long epic, essentially. And... Of course, when Adrian passed away, that really, really sort of changed some of the places that they wanted to go with it. And they kind of dedicated the album to him as sort of just this incredibly monumental farewell to their friend, essentially. And I think that it's incredibly poignant. The lyrics are a little bit inscrutable.
Sure, you gotta find them and read them. You can't really.
Yeah,
you're not really gonna get them while listening to the music so much.
You're certainly not going to get the death growled vocals, which I
didn't even realize were death growls the first time I listened to it.
You just thought it was.
What's that odd that flaw in the recording?
What's that weird sort of gravelly noise going on?
Did somebody drop a cymbal somewhere in the back? Or?
It is some of the deepest and most guttural and most I'm running out of adjectives for it. It's almost almost inaudibly low.
And there's a heavy amount of reverb on it too.
Yes, there is an insane amount of reverb, but I've heard some of the live performances with Jesse, and yeah, he can do that sort of vocal live. But of course, again, you can also live put a ton of reverb on it.
Sure.
And I think this album in general would sound so fucking weird without reverb on it. And this is the sort of thing where you want it absolutely drowned in reverb, because you've got two instruments. You have two instruments on stage. There needs to be
and there's
a
a
way.
Hammond organ at some point.
Yes. There needs to be a way to make this sound more full. And that's kind of the purpose that reverb serves in any piece of audio, is it makes something sound a little bit more full. And yeah, there's so many other effects though. This is such a crazy produced album. I can't imagine the patience an audio engineer would have to have for some of this. I don't know what the recording process was like, but that had to have been so interesting. Depending upon who you are as a recording engineer, this is either, oh fuck, you kidding me? You kidding me? Or, oh wow, this is really interesting. I'm really excited for this. And I guess it sort of depends. I believe they recorded it at a sort of place that was a bit more friendly to that. They recorded it. Can I see where they recorded it?
They recorded it in the suicide capital of North America.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
Where weed is legal now, but I mean.
So, I mean, that's probably helping things out, right?
Sure. Can you imagine being the recording engineer? Oh, shit. I'm working with this new band today, and I accidentally got too high on my way to work.
Well, and then you get in, it's like, yeah, this album's 83 minutes long. Oh, never mind. I'm good.
Yeah, that's cool. What's the first part? Are you warming up right now very slowly, or
are you playing it?
Or is this the actual? Oh shit!
They're playing it. It's like recording and producing a fucking Sun album.
Yeah,
where it's just like, oh, the engineer accidentally left all the amps on overnight, and we've got a new album.
They show up to record. Yeah, we're done. What? Done with what? Get it. It's a wrap.
I'm pretty sure that was a Hard Times article that I'm recalling somewhere. I can't find it, at least on the Wikipedia page where they recorded it, but I remember hearing the name of the studio.
Somewhere in Seattle.
Yeah, and it was somewhere in Seattle, and I remember hearing the name of the studio and going like, yeah, they sound like the type of people that'd be on board with this just from the name of the studio. It was like they do some weird shit there.
Sure.
But it was produced by a guy named Billy Anderson and the band. Yeah, this is I feel like there's so much to talk about, but it's difficult to talk about it in specific terms.
Right, it is. I mean, there's a lot of phrasing in this that's beautiful 2-chord back and forth.
Yes.
They would go from the minor into the major, into the minor, into the major.
Yes.
And that's the whole thing. It's just like chords played in a bass, and then occasionally the drummer sort of reminds you that he's there.
Yep. And I think going back and forth between minor and major and the different textures, and going back and forth between this incredible pit of despair and a feeling that I think is best described as bittersweet. Nothing sounds happy on this album, but there are parts that certainly sound hopeful and a bit more bittersweet and a bit less,
a little reminiscent. I mean, a little
like you're
sort of introspective.
Yeah, you're fondly remembering somebody. You're still incredibly broken and sad, and mourning and feeling this very intense feeling of grief.
Right,
but you are also remembering the good things about it, and the provides that feeling of catharsis. If it was just despair, there'd be no catharsis. There has to be something to get you out of it.
Right.
And I think that it all comes back to the idea when they were first coming up with it of as above, so below.
Sure.
Going back and forth.
I feel like that's an album by somebody.
It's a million different albums.
As
by
above,
people.
so below. Yeah.
That's a million different albums and lyrics and song names in metal in the greater music community. It's as a concept or as a lyrical concept at the very least, it's incredibly cliche, I would say.
Sure.
But as a concept for an 83-minute long doom metal album, pretty neat.
Sure.
And when you're approaching it from a songwriting perspective instead of from a lyrical and thematic perspective, I think it's a bit more original.
And then saying it out loud.
Yeah. And the lyrics themselves have to do with have less to do directly with grief and more to do with this idea of ghosts.
Yes.
Generally, the band is kind of obsessed with ghosts in a way. I mean, the name of the band is Bell Witch, which is a southern sort of folkloric myth that has to do with spirits and ghosts.
Has to do with spirits and ghosts. It also has to do with some violent behavior in the South.
Yeah, very violent behavior in the South. But the last 38 minutes of the song feature actually a third member. I discussed this earlier today before I realized that was him. Is a man named, oh no, I lost it. Give me a second.
What a weird name.
Yeah, his name was, oh no, his name is Eric Mogridge. He provides the vocals on the last 38, that sort of very tender, sort of mournful, clean vocals in the last half of the song, roughly. He is the sole member of a folk project called Ariel Ruin.
Okay.
Ariel Ruin kind of has a style of, I mean, it's folk, but it has a lot of influence of, it has a lot of metal influence to it. It is kind of dark folk music.
Forced Entry. That's what was making me think of that.
What?
The band Forced Entry.
Oh, okay.
A progressive speed metal band from the 80s and 90s.
What was the context?
Their album As Above, So Below.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what this is tripping my trigger. I know this is from something.
We figured it out. But Ariel Ruin has done a bunch of collaborations with people because, of course, it's a one-man project.
Right.
And the guys from Bell Witch, I think, have been strong collaborators with him for a while. They just came out with a split album that is really good. And there was also another split album that Eric Mogridge did with Austin Lunn, a man who might as well be his twin, because the both of them are kind of these haggard looking, 30-something dudes with thick blonde beards and long Viking hair, and they both have this kind of have this sort of folk metal aesthetic going on where it's the camo pants and the all the patches on the vest, and that's like the two of them are like almost identical. It's so bizarre to the point where I was looking up pictures of Ariel Ruin and I knew that he did a thing with Panopticon, and I saw the pictures of Eric Mogridge and went, why is the picture for Ariel Ruin a picture of Austin Lunn?
Oh, it's not.
It's not. They just look exactly the same. So that immediately kind of endeared the whole idea of Ariel Ruin to me, because it's associated with Panopticon. Okay, that's fine.
That's cool. That's associated because he looks like him,
and also because they did an album together.
Sure.
But
that would be weird if your wife died and you said, "Oh, you look like my wife. I'll marry you."
That would be weird.
That would be weird. Oh, you look like Panopticon.
So if Austin Lunn does something horrible, and I'm just like, I can't be a Panopticon fan anymore. Yeah. Well, it looks like I'll switch over to Ariel Ruin.
Yeah. Because it's the same guy.
Yeah, because it's basically the same guy.
Yeah.
Or you could switch over to whatever the other Austin Lunn is doing. Because remember, there's two Austin Lunns.
Right, but they're not, yeah.
Supposedly, there's two Austin Lunns. I never really dug any deeper on that. It's
the other
bizarre.
Austin Lunn, he's an accountant in Des Moines or something.
After he got done with Panopticon.
He was the original Austin Lunn in Panopticon.
Well, no, because there were two Austin Lunns in Panopticon.
In Panopticon?
Yeah. It was a weird thing I
feel
found.
like that can't be true.
I
feel like that's him fucking with people.
I don't know if it's true. It is something I found on it.
I feel like I do so much on two people.
It'd be like, man, sometimes I feel like I do so much on two people. He's from Kentucky.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, that was something I found on the metal encyclopedia.
It sounded like Elvis, but man,
Sometimes I do so much. I feel like I'm two people. Doesn't your dad do Elvis impressions?
My dad is an Elvis impersonator. You are correct. And he did it recently for a big talent contest, and I didn't hear how it went. My dad's Elvis impersonation, you know how people get older and they get shittier?
Yeah.
My dad's Elvis has actually improved
with age.
With age. It has
your dad's Elvis is like a fine wine.
It is a fine wine. It's sort of diverged. It's like you're going, I feel like I'm watching an Elvis impersonator, but maybe I'm watching undead Elvis.
Maybe I'm watching old Elvis.
Old Elvis. He's done something new. I mean, it is kind of almost a different shtick. Kinda.
It's instead of going with I'm impersonating Elvis while he was alive.
Yeah, this is what Elvis would be doing.
Would be if he was my age. If he lived to be my age.
Right.
That's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah, and
kudos to your dad.
Yeah, and he does it very well. And he always gets lots of applause. I still remember at his birthday, he came out and he was doing the regular Elvis. He had the jumpsuit with the sparkles and he had a wig,
classic '60s Elvis.
And so classic late '60s Elvis.
Late '60s.
And he had the big sunglasses on. And at one point he took off the wig, and somebody out in the audience went, "Oh shit, it's Barry!" Yeah. Yeah, so that's what happened.
Someone thought they were actually watching Elvis.
Yeah, no, not really, but it was a funny moment.
That's
it was
fucking hilarious. That's really funny. But anyway, Eric Mogridge from Ariel Ruin does vocals on this, and I think the split album that they did. It's not really a split album. It's a collaborative album. Because when you hear a split album or a split EP in metal, you think half the songs are this band, half the songs are this band.
Right. No.
Every song is Bell Witch and Ariel Ruin.
It's all purely collaborative.
Yeah, it's purely collaborative. And as I understand, I think he does the majority of the vocals, and I think Jesse contributes some growled vocals in there as well. Speaking of vocals, a very important part of this album I haven't talked about yet is the high vocals that you hear in the middle.
Yeah.
The high shrieks. That is Adrian. They had leftover vocal tracks from Four Phantoms.
Really?
And
so it was him from Beyond the Grave.
Yep. They had some leftover tracks and decided that
I didn't know that.
It would only be fitting to put them in this huge farewell song to him, to have his vocals featured on there. And they really kind of form the and I'm kind of parroting something that I read in a review. I don't remember from what publication, but it's something I very much agree with, where they form kind of the emotional core of the album.
Yeah.
In the sense that this is, the sound of a desperate grief.
Yeah.
And its many different stages of despair and joy, and like all the different parts of grief, and figuring out how you feel. It's doesn't matter whether you are on the depressive side of it or on the other side of it, where you're happy that you knew the person and you're recalling the happy memories, or you're sad that they're gone and you're thinking about all the things you want to say to them. Whether you're on either side, both of those are extremely intense feelings.
Yeah.
And I think that being the middle point of this palindromic album, that being at the center, because they really are basically right at the center of the album, I think is such a perfect thing, because it's like no matter what side of this you're on, it's still just intense and harrowing. Harrow is also a word that gets used a lot because it's mirror reaper.
Reaper, right. And a harrow is
something that
a reaping tool.
Yeah, harvests wheat. We should talk about the artwork.
Fantastic artwork.
Oh my God.
That's beautiful. Haunting.
I immediately made it, as soon as I found out about this album, I immediately made it the screensaver on my phone, because it is just gorgeous. It was done by a Polish artist named Mariusz Lewandowski, who is a huge fan and student of Zadyslaw Bekinski, who, like, when I first...
Zadyslaw Bekinski.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Zadyslaw.
Yeah, no, you're right. But
Zdzislaw.
I'm just thinking of the artwork is why I'm giggling. It's just because it's so...
Yeah. And it looks it looks very much like one of Bekinski's paintings.
Right.
And that's because this other guy, Mariusz Lewandowski, is a huge fan and takes a ton of influence. Of course, McKinsey's no longer with us. But it is when I first saw it, I was like, that looks familiar. That looks like the cover of my H.P. Lovecraft novels that I have, because Bakinski's work gets used a lot for Lovecraft novels. Even
though Lovecraft wasn't the one who associated with it.
Yes.
It's just the publishers tend to do that.
Yeah, publishers.
Because it works.
Yeah, it evokes the right sort of feeling you get from some of Lovecraft's works anyways. I've only read At the Mountains of Madness all the way through.
Really?
At some point I should read Call of Cthulhu.
Yes, you should.
And what there's other... Shadow over Innsmouth.
Do you have like an Amazon account at all?
I do.
Because you can get the complete works.
I think I
for
have.
free. You can get that on a tablet.
I'm pretty sure I have
Kindle form.
I think I have Call of Cthulhu on paperback.
I have all of them.
And I have. There was a compilation one that had Out the Mountains of Madness in it, and then there was Call of Cthulhu by itself, and I have both of them. And I think I feel like Shadow over Innsmouth is in the compilation one with At the Mountains of Madness.
If it's the compilation I have, yeah.
God, the artwork is just gorgeous, and the colors on it. I mean, it's sort of a classic play between blues and oranges, and sort of a gradient in between, because that's a big thing in graphic design these days is blues and oranges.
Right.
You see it on every fucking movie poster and video game cover to the point where you get sick of it. But this is just such a heavy piece of artwork that I really love. This is one of those cases where, like, I heard, I didn't really know what Mirror Reaper was. I heard someone mention it on the Doom Metal subreddit, and I saw the cover of it and went, I got to listen to that.
Sure.
Which is, strangely enough, also what got me into a different Doom Metal band, which was Swallow the Sun.
Right.
I was watching a video of new arrivals at the local record store last year, and they were flipping
Budget
through.
Music and Video.
Yeah, but Budget. We should say the name. Budget Music Video in Minot, North Dakota.
So as far as I'm concerned, you need to go there.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where you are. Make a trek.
Make a trip. Go to Budget Music and Video.
Yeah. Say hi to Dylan and John and the good guys.
But they were flipping through the new arrivals that they had, and I saw the artwork for When a Shadow is Forced into the Light, and I was like, I have to have this album. I don't care what it sounds like. That's such a gorgeous piece of that's such a gorgeous piece of art.
There are so many cassettes that I bought in my lifetime
just because of the cover art.
On that same principle. Great cover art. Hey, does it say did Tipper Gore say this is a bad album? Awesome, I'm buying it.
That is also these days that you can't really do that anymore, but
the sticker was a big thing in my day.
Well, yeah, I mean, people still put explicit tags on stuff, but the whether or not that is the mark of quality is not really a reliable method of choosing music anymore.
Record label used to be a big deal for choosing music as well.
I suppose.
Is that really a thing anymore? I mean,
it kind of depends. It depends on the genre, and it depends on the record label, really.
Right.
I think we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about Chemists.
Sure.
Is if you see like a death metal band you've never heard before, and they're signed to Nuclear Blast.
Give it a listen. It's going to be...
Give it a listen, but it's going to be kind of cookie cutter, and the production is going
Nuclear Blast used to be awesome in the 90s.
Yeah. These days, they sign literally...
anybody.
You've recorded an EP, here you go, and we'll give you this, we'll give you a stipend for, cheap digital stipend. I don't know why I said stipend. A stipend for cheap digital production. Sure. Here you go.
Earache. Earache is one that...
Earache, I think, is still pretty good.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of metal bands on Roadrunner anymore.
No, Roadrunner was awesome.
Yep.
Combat was another... that was an offshoot of Columbia.
Yep.
It was Capitol.
Let me see. There's so many records. I would say these days Death Wish is usually pretty good. That's Jacob Bannon's label. If you hear something on Death Wish, Epitaph
Records. Yeah, Epitaph is going to be hardcore punk mostly.
Yeah, yep. But still a lot of great stuff on Epitaph.
I mean, that was started by Bad Religion, wasn't it? I mean, what's his name? What the fuck is his name?
Is it Jello Biafra?
No, that's
that's
Dead Kennedys.
That's okay. You're right. Yeah, I don't know my fucking early hardcore bands, man.
Yeah.
What was the name of the band? I've got a computer in front of me. Bad Religion.
It was Epitaph Records was the baby of
Greg Gaffin.
Greg. Yeah. Yep. Greg.
And And hey, labels, Epitaph.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember some of the other like record labels. Can't really recall them off the top of my head.
Cleopatra.
But
no,
like, there's so many small ones these days that are putting out so many good records. Like, I guess like Season of Mist. There's a lot of good stuff on Season of Mist. That's like Heilung's label.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of other good ones on there. I think that's what Falls of Rauros was on. Who I actually, now that I think about it, haven't listened to in a little bit.
Right. I still feel like Scooby-Doo named that band, but
Falls of Rauros. Oh, that took me to the Lord of the Rings page for Boromir.
Of course it did.
I'm pretty sure they have their own Wikipedia page. No, they don't. Falls of Rauros.
Band.
The band. What label are they on? You gonna tell me? Record labels. Yeah. Well, there's Bindrune Recordings, which is I think that's Austin Lund's deal. I want to say. I think. I'm not entirely sure. In any case, there's lots of good record labels out there. It's things are so diverse these days that I don't think you can really go necessarily by record label.
Sure.
There's so many.
Recognize them.
Yeah, there's so many bands out there these days that there's going to be amazing stuff on every label and there's going to be complete shit on every label.
Yeah.
That's just how saturated the market is for metal bands at the moment.
Metal Blade, that was another great.
Metal Blade is, I think, still pretty good. They're that's what Cattle Decap is on. So they got one good band on there at least.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the hell label is Cannibal Corpse signed to these days. Let's find out. Cannibal Corpse, what label are they on? We're about to find out. Come on, you tell me.
Hey, bring it up.
You label. Oh, they're on Metal Blade.
They're on Metal Blade. Oh,
yeah. So Metal Blade at least can claim the largest and most popular death metal band. So they got that that going for them.
Yeah.
Pat O'Brien is still listed on the members of Cannibal Corpse. I guess they didn't. They didn't kick him out. Let's see.
Well, no,
I never really figured out what became of Pat O'Brien.
Are you going to get kicked out of Cannibal Corpse for being too extreme? Is that a thing?
I guess not. So I guess a quick sidebar before we wrap things up about Pat O'Brien. Oh my God. Had his court appearance. So the thing that happened, that was December 10th, 2018. His court appearance the next day, he was wearing an anti-suicide vest. His wrists and ankles were chained together. His bail was only set at $50,000 though. There was flamethrowers, numerous weapons and ammo caught fire and exploded inside his home. One neighbor said that he just seemed like a regular neighbor. Get out of the car, go right to the house. That's about it. Crowdfunding campaign for O'Brien was launched by the drummer's wife, Deanna. She stated, quote, he does not have insurance and lost everything that he owns for the fire, losses in the fire. He was released from jail on December 14th after posting bond. And let's see. Do we see anything particular? The list of weapons included 50 shotguns, 10 semi-automatic rifles, 2 Uzi-style rifles, which would be, like it's just an Uzi with a long barrel and a stock.
Sure.
And 20 different handguns. Other materials found were a number of locked safes, 2 flamethrowers, thousands of rounds of ammo stored in boxes.
Were these licensed? Was he cleared for carrying? I don't know. Was it all underground?
It's Florida, so sky's the fucking limit. Let's see. Several other weapons with their parts and 3 skulls. One of the weapons in particular was a sawed-off shotgun.
Sure.
Off to about an inch past the stock. That was illegal to possess, so he probably got something with that. The search warrant that was issued did not say that O'Brien had the proper paperwork for this cache. So apparently some of this was illegal for him to have.
Yeah. At least.
Cannibal Corpse expressed their respects for O'Brien, but would not release any further information regarding the incident. And that, quote, he is getting the help he needs and appreciates the love and support from Cannibal Corpse fans from around the world. They then said he is looking forward to a future return to the band, and that their tours and shows would continue as planned. George Fisher spoke out and said that he was shocked to hear about O'Brien's arrest and that the fans have expressed their support for him. Mm-hmm. He also said he broke down upon seeing him in court with the anti-suicide vest. So, yeah, I guess I don't know what is going on with Pat O'Brien right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's in jail. I don't know if he's out of jail. I don't. I
hope he's okay. That's what I hope.
I hope Pat O'Brien is okay. I don't know where he's at or what he's doing for right now. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we went on a hell of a tangent.
A bit of a rabbit hole.
But I mean, we haven't really talked about any of our criteria.
Sure.
But this is an album that kind of defies a lot of our criteria.
Yeah.
The slap is an obvious no.
No.
This album does not slap.
No.
This album is amazing. It's great. It does not slap.
No, it gently graces your face with a finger.
And then an occasion, though, instead of like
bony,
instead of like stroking your face of like, I mean, at some points it's, like a gentle, like, it's a warming, like, hey, it's going to be okay. And at other times it's like, grimy and bony and gross. And then at other times it like grabs you by the face and goes, remember me. Something like some sort of weird dream sequence in a David Lynch movie that you're having right after a funeral.
For 83 minutes.
Exactly. I mean, it's about as long as some of David Lynch's takes.
I heard about you. Okay. Yeah.
That gum that was the arm said that, didn't he? He said backwards that gum you like is going to go back into, or was that the old man?
I have good news. No, it was
that was the old man.
It was the
hotel worker,
the little guy. Yeah.
Oh, it was the little guy.
Yeah, it was the little guy. Good news.
The arm.
That gum you like is back in style.
That gum you like is going to come back into style because everything was backwards. So the score I found was 85. This was really it got critical acclaim upon release. I think for very obvious and deserved reasons. What's your favorite song?
Mirror Reaper. I think it's my favorite song in this album.
Mirror Reaper is also my favorite song. I think my favorite movement is probably I don't know how to. I mean, I can only make the noise,
right?
Which is do 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 do. Like I don't know how else the movements have names. Right. I don't know where to access
or where they are.
The names of the movements. It's like a Godspeed You Black Emperor song.
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
Where like these different sections have names, and I have a vinyl of Lift Your Skinny Fists where they have the names of the movements and the approximate lengths.
But I feel like when you're listening to this album, you shut the door on a chamber of some sort, and you're no longer privy to time and space. I
suppose. I mean, I do listen to this a lot when I'm playing RimWorld, and that is definitely the sort of headspace that I'm in. I mean, RimWorld is fun for me though.
Okay.
I swear to God, it's fun. I swear it's fun. I can stop anytime. It's so fun. I tend to listen to this a lot when I'm playing RimWorld, and certainly spacing out and having no concept of time is where I'm at with that game. What medal are you bestowing upon this? Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca after the death of Han Solo. I mean, it's a while after the death of Han Solo when she does that, because he dies in the first movie, spoiler alert, and she does that in the third movie because Disney was like, he deserves the medal.
He didn't get the medal in episode 4.
So now we're going to give it to... Is that your impression of Kathleen Kennedy?
I'm Kathleen Kennedy. So what we're going to do is... Maz Kanata.
Wow, Kathleen Kennedy has turned into Luke Bryan.
Hi there, I'm Luke Bryan. Knocking boots. Get on up there and shake your ass for me, girl.
I fucking hate Luke Bryan. God, I despise him.
Hi, I'm Luke Bryan. Someday we'll find it. The Rainbow Connection.
All right. What medal are you fucking giving this album?
I don't even know. I don't know how I feel about
I know.
It's so. I mean, it's its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean.
It's hard to rank it next, like, because I'm giving this a gold, but I have to.
Yeah, I'll give it a gold.
I have to be honest with you, though. It is one of those things where it is hard to compare it to other albums we've given golds and think of them being on the same level.
I feel like this is just running its own race.
Yeah.
Like it's come over the finish line. There's nobody else out there.
It was doing its own thing.
Here's the
it's
gold.
Gonna keep doing its own thing.
There is no silver runner on the
and I can understand, because for me, usually the idea of a gold is connected to the idea of a gold is connected to how badly do I want to re-listen to this. And for me, at least, I find myself wanting to revisit this fairly often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've listened to this more than once.
Yeah. But I can totally understand, for some people, this being the musical equivalent of Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah. Which I've only watched once.
You watch that movie once and you go, that was great. Never need to watch it again.
It's funny. I got a DVD copy. I had a friend of mine who had Requiem for a Dream. And he had a bunch of DVDs. And he just programmed, I'll burn you a bunch of DVDs. And he's like, hey, have you seen this Aronofsky movie? I'm like, I haven't seen it yet. And then he burned me the DVD and I watched it. And it got to the point, I watched it once, and now that DVD won't play anymore because
and that's fine.
It's too old to play. Now,
and you lost nothing.
And I lost, yes, I've missed out on nada.
I thought you were going to say, I took it out of the DVD player and snapped it in two.
No, I mean, it's just that the re-recordable DVDs, they only last so long.
I suppose.
Because they fade like Polaroids.
Yeah. My movie version of that, because I have not actually seen Requiem for a Dream, but everyone
you should.
I know I should at some point.
Make sure you're really drunk.
I'm sure. Yeah, or I should get high on heroin and and watch Requiem for a Dream.
Or what you do is you wash back a bunch of oxys with scotch.
There you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're again sort of dragging on, but
right.
My movie version of that was always a documentary called
you're
Dear
gonna
Zachary.
say it. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I need to.
It is. it's just so. But I watched it twice.
Yeah,
I watched it again.
I've watched Schindler's List 4 times.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a value to catharsis, which I think is why I love Mirror Reaper so much.
Right.
But that's it for Mirror Reaper. Next week, what are we doing?
Okay, give me newer, older, or original. Because I have 3 albums in mind. I'm not sure where I want to go.
Okay, I have 3 choices. I'm gonna go get a die.
Oh, again, okay. He's going to get a die. He's going to get...
the bags are right here.
The bags are right here.
I have 8 million die within arm's reach.
So probably a roll of 6.
Yeah, a 6, certainly. So 1 and 2, older. 2 and 3, newer. The other one's... Original.
4.
So that's newer, isn't it?
Is that newer? Wait a minute.
Let's reestablish the criteria.
Newer, older, or original?
So 1 and 2, newer.
3 and 4.
3 and 4, older. 5 and 6, original. 2. So we're going with
The Satanist.
The Satanist by Behemoth.
Yeah.
Okay. We're finally getting to it.
Yes, I've wanted to for a while because it's a great album.
It is a good album.
Fantastic.
I have listened to it, and I think it's pretty good, and we'll talk about it in detail next week. Behemoth's The Satanist.
These, by the way, were 3 of the most disparate sounding albums.
What were the other ones? What were the possibilities?
We're going to go with older, which would be going into the late 80s with Fate's Warning's No Exit.
Okay.
There was sort of also ran what would you call it? Progressive rock. It's from like the Seattle area.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And we're going to go with original. We're going to go back to 1981 with an album that we are eventually going to get to, and you're going to thank me for it. Too Fast for Love.
By
Motley Crue.
Oh, boy.
Which their first album, if you listen to it all the way through, you go, this is actually a perfect record.
I mean, hey, Motley Crue got incredibly popular.
They did for a reason. Yeah. That first album, the second album, then the third album, the fourth album, and the fifth.
So they pulled a Metallica.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, someday we'll get to that next
Sure.
week, though. Behemoth.
We're going to Poland next week.
We're going to Poland, and maybe we'll run into Zadislav Kinski.
No, he's dead.
Yeah, he is. That is true. So if you're excited for that, like we are, I guess you can subscribe to our feeds on Libsyn and iTunes or your podcast app on your iOS device. And if you've got an Android, you can download an app called the Podcast Source. There might be other apps that feed from Libsyn, but that is the one that I have on my Android device. It's called the Podcast Source in iOS devices.
My phone actually told me this morning that this week's podcast was up and running.
Yeah, because I uploaded that last night.
Yeah.
Your phone will just let you know when there's a new episode.
Sure.
You can also find us on Twitter and on Facebook, and we post new links there if you want to listen to it on your browser while you're at work or zoning out playing a video game.
Like if you're playing Rimjob.
Yep. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ. Congratulations. Oh, that sounded like it was going to break.
No, it's fine.
Wow, this is fine. Isn't this not fine crystal?
No, this is not. These are incredibly cheap glasses.
Really? Are you telling me that we drank Hawaiian Punch with vodka in it out of cheap glasses?
Oh no. Oh no, I didn't break out the fine china for Hawaiian Punch and vodka.
Oh, gosh.